Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. It's good to be back. Missed a few shows. Lots happened since then in the world of sports, and we got a lot to talk about today. Colin Kaepernick tried out today, I believe it's today or yesterday, excuse me, with the Las Vegas Raiders. I'll discuss that, as well as the whole Brooklyn Nets situation, which is truly falling apart before our very eyes. Now they're, looks like they're not going to give Kyrie Irving an extension. Kevin Durant hasn't talked to the franchise since the season ended. I'll discuss that at the end of the show. And of course, I will certainly get to Boston taking a 3-2 lead in the series over Miami. I think this baby is a wrap, as well as my Golden State Warriors. Folks, got a chance to go to the NBA Finals tonight. Looking forward to it. Tip-off is at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific time on TNT. And the Golden State Warriors, my Golden State Warriors, once again, have a chance to advance to the NBA Finals. So again, there's a lot going on in sports right now. A lot I've even got planned for tomorrow's show because we have so much in the world of sports. But something happened on Tuesday afternoon that we're all aware of at this point. In Uvalde, Texas, at Robb Elementary School, 19 children were killed. 2 teachers were killed by an armed gunman, who thankfully was taken out as well. As a matter of fact, just today, one of the teachers who were killed, her husband passed away of a heart attack today, and so really you could think about it as 22 casualties in this tragedy. I've got a lot I want to say about this, but before I do, I think it'd be best appropriate for somebody who knows what it's like to lose somebody to gun violence. I think it'd be best for him to speak on it first before I dive in. Proud to say the coach of my Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr.
Since we left shoot around, 14 children were killed 400 miles from here, and a teacher. And in the last 10 days, we've had elderly Black people killed in a supermarket in Buffalo. We've had Asian churchgoers killed in Southern California, and now we have children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years. And there's a reason they won't vote on it, to hold on to power. So I ask you, Mitch McConnell, I ask all of you senators who refuse to do anything about the violence and school shootings and supermarket shootings, I ask you, are you going to put your own desire for power ahead of the lives of our children and our elderly and our churchgoers? Because that's what it looks like. It's what we do every week. So I'm fed up. I've had enough. We're going to play the game tonight, but I want every person here, every person listening to this to think about your own child or grandchild or mother or father or sister, brother. How would you feel if this happened to you today? We can't get numb to this. We can't sit here and just read about it and go, well, let's have a moment of silence. Yeah, go Dubs, Come on, Mavs, let's go. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go play a basketball game. And 50 senators in Washington are going to hold us hostage. Do you realize that 90% of Americans, regardless of political party, want background check, universal background check? 90% of us, we are being held hostage by 50 senators in Washington who refuse to even put it to a vote, despite what we, the American people, want. They won't vote on it because they want to hold on to their own power. It's pathetic. I've had enough.
Again, that was Steve Kerr, the head coach of the Golden State Warriors. Many people are aware that Steve Kerr's father was killed in 1984 in Beirut. He was a victim of gun violence when Steve Kerr was a freshman at Arizona, the University of Arizona, playing college basketball. So my take, you've heard plenty of takes on the tragedy in the last 48 hours. I'll give you mine. So when Sandy Hook happened in December of 2012, I was 9 years old. Don't remember much about that day, except for the fact that I remember my school, which was not in Connecticut, in Tennessee, went on lockdown. And I remember we would do lockdown practices at school, and it would be the students were never really told, probably not to scare the students, whether it was a practice run or whether this was legit. And I'd say we probably had a couple that were legit lockdowns of the school, that being one of them. It's the only thing I remember from that day. Again, I was too young to really comprehend what was going on. And of course, there were shootings that happened in the following 5.5 years up until February the 14th of 2018 in Parkland, Florida, Stoneman Douglas High School, where multiple high schoolers were killed or wounded because of gun violence. And the God's truth is coming from the bottom of my heart as a now former high school student going to college this fall. The God's truth that I can tell you is this. There was never one moment going into school where I ever felt 100% safe. As a matter of fact, I would say the last 2 years, because COVID was the year before that. This past year, and I can't believe I'm even have to say this, but every time I would walk in a classroom, and I swear to you guys, this is the God's truth, I'd always look for an exit or somewhere to hide. Because you never freaking know in today's culture, with the gun violence numbers where they're at, if something were to happen, what am I going to do? 22 deaths related to this, because I believe that the husband of one of the teachers passing away today was 1,000% a direct result because of this. But let's talk about the people that were shot. 2 were teachers. These teachers committed their lives to educating children. As a matter of fact, both were protecting the children when they were killed. For the 19 others who lost their lives between the ages of 6 and 10, they're not going to see a 13th birthday, graduation, 18th birthday, marriages, kids, getting to experience things that we who do have the privilege of getting to this stage and, Lord willing, further in life, get to enjoy the process of life, the stages of life that every single one of us goes through. They won't get to see that now. Those of the children that were killed, these kids were the ages of many of my cousins. My cousins could have been in that. Your cousins, your kids, brothers, sisters could have been involved in this. When it's all said and done, what this comes down to at the end of the day is a matter of the fact that there is such a culture, there is such a belief by certain people holding power, as Coach Kerr talked about. When it comes down to it, they don't give a you-know-what about kids' lives. They don't. Guy I quote a lot, Mark Jackson. He's got a famous saying when he calls basketball games. He says, don't talk about it, be about it. I'm hearing a lot of thoughts and prayers. I'm hearing a lot of, this is terrible. This is horrible for the city of Uvalde and horrible for Texas and the country and what just happened in Buffalo and California and Milwaukee. But we're just going to go on with our daily lives because that's what we do. What bothers me more than anything else, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day, what bothers me more than anybody else is that with this problem that we have in America, and this is an American problem, look at the numbers. When you look at school shootings, shootings in general, right? Of all the developed countries in the world, of course, us being one of them, of all children aged 0 to 14 killed by guns in developed countries, 87% are U.S. children. School shootings that we have had since 2009. Second place is Mexico. They've had 8. We've had 288 school shootings since 2009. Just this year, in K through 12 schools, we've had 30. But I hear this mindset from some people in power and politics. Well, there's just nothing we can do. Right? Criminals are going to find a way to get guns anyway. Bad people are going to find a way to do bad things regardless of what laws you have set. I have 2 responses to that. Number 1, what's the point of even having laws if that's your logic? Number 2, we in America, we've always had this mindset. And you see it in my podcast series, the Carving Up U.S. Presidents Edition I do with my good buddy Isaac Lawson. We talk about the presidents. You see this mindset in America that we've always been proud of. That through the worst of times, slavery, civil war, the world wars, civil rights, everything, 9/11, every single thing that we've been through in this country, there's always been a resolve from the American people. And for people in power to say, we're going to get through this. Even if it's not a tragedy, even if it's not something, a crisis. If we set a goal, we've always had this mindset here in America, and I speak only for America because I'm an American, we're going to do this. President John F. Kennedy said in 1962, we're going to put a man on the moon. People said this man's out of his mind. 7 years later, we put a man on the moon, doggone it. But now, we're just not going to do anything. We're not going to put any laws in place to try and fight what's going on right now. And me, and this is the first time I've ever said this, politically, I'm an independent. There's things that I lean left on, there's things that I lean right on. I'm a political independent, and I'm proud of it. So, that being said, there's one individual I want to call out, one specifically. That's the governor of Texas. Greg Abbott said, quote, that this could have been worse. This shooting could have been worse. Tell that to the families who just lost their 19 children. Tell that to the families of the two teachers who lost their lives. Tell that to the 4 children who are now orphans. The Garcias, who are both gone now. Tell that to them, that this could have been worse. I'm just tired of this nonchalant attitude that so many people have that don't care. The vast majority, I know you care, I care, the vast majority of America cares about this issue. Nobody wants to see kids, anybody, but especially kids, killed in school. Nobody wants to see that. But you have some of these jokers in politics who don't freaking care. It just freaking bothers me that this is something that has been going on for a long time in America, and we have done basically nothing to confront it. And so here's my solution. In terms of policy and in terms of action that we can take. Policy, Steve Kerr talked about background checks. Is background checks going to fix the issue by itself? Absolutely not. 33% of criminals, 33% of these shooters have had no previous criminal record. So background checks are not going to eliminate all criminals, but certainly they will help. And secondly, can we put metal detectors in schools? Please. Can we put metal detectors in schools? Well, that's going to take money. Don't we always joke about these politicians putting money into stuff that we really don't care about? We always joke about that. Oh, they're putting money in this. Oh, man, nobody cares about that, but they're just blowing our taxpayer dollars. Who couldn't get behind this? You know, a buddy of mine retweeted something that I thought was really poignant. When 9/11 happened, 21 years ago, when 9/11 happened, we bent heaven and earth to change airports. Because people were so traumatized, thousands lost their lives on that day. We wanted to make sure that this never happened again. And to this day, airports look different than they did in, say, the year 2000, going back to when airports were first, a thing. Why aren't we moving heaven and earth now? To protect all people, but to protect children. You see these kids' faces. They look like any other 6 to 10-year-old you see wherever you're at. Gone now. Here's the second thing. We need to protest. Peacefully, of course. I don't even need to get into that. We need to bring the same energy that throughout the history of this nation that we have brought when certain tensions arise. You look at the women's suffrage movement of the early 20th century. You look at the civil rights movement. Heck, just look at 2 years ago. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. Look how for I thought these protests were going to go on like 2-3 days. They went on months because people were so tired of the injustices that go on in the country today that we said we're going to put pressure on those in power to change things. And there's been some things that have been changed. Still got a long way to go, but some things have been changed because the American people brought a certain energy, a certain ferocity, a certain passion of this is not okay. We have to change. And then the second thing that we, the people, can do if these politicians don't want to do anything, you know what we can do? And you know what these politicians don't take into account that a lot of the survivors of these shootings can do very soon? Vote. That's what they don't realize. Those in power look at these kids and turn a blind eye. We see that. We saw it after Sandy Hook. We saw it after Parkland. We're seeing it now. They turn a blind eye. Well, you know what a lot of these kids, especially high school age kids, are about to be able to do? Vote. They can put you out of work by going to the ballot box in November. But we cannot frickin' sit on our hands. Like Steve Kerr said, when are we going to do something? And look, I get everybody talking about the Second Amendment, and I'm not somebody who says we just get rid of the Second Amendment. Absolutely not. You know, everybody deserves the right to protect themselves. I get that. But I will never, ever defend the Second Amendment before I will defend the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We should all be afforded that right before anything else, right to bear arms included. I'm tired of this. Got a couple comments here from my guy, Fan Perspective Podcast, John Rivera. He's just as heartbroken as I am, as I'm sure the rest of you are. I'm so freaking tired of it, man. You know, you've heard the perspectives of parents. I mean, I'm seeing people, folks, who I know in my personal life that I've never had a discussion about politics about, in part because some of these people don't really care about politics as much as I do, or certain others I talk to do. And even they're talking about they fear for their kids. And so as somebody who, you know, knock on wood, hopefully is never in this position, hopefully my sister's never in this position, trying to go get a public education and fearing for your life. But this generation does not feel safe at schools, nor should we. And those in power right now, if y'all don't care, okay, we'll vote you out in November. I saw today, I think it was Oxford High School, I think was what it was called. I think it might have been in Texas. And I think there might have been a shooting in November there. I mean, there's so many shootings, we just freaking lose track of them. We lose track because it's a daily occurrence. There have been more shootings in the year 2022 than there have been days. But today was like their last day of school, and all the kids walked out in protest. Not protesting school, but protesting what's going on. Students should protest. Teachers should protest because they have been the biggest target of these crimes. There are simple, as they call it, common sense gun laws that we need to get passed to keep the people of this country and to keep the kids in schools safe, to keep elderly black people at a supermarket safe, to keep Asian American churchgoers in California safe. Church, the grocery store, school, concert, movie theater, dentist. We should feel safe in these places, but we don't. So it's I'm tired of it, man. I'm sick of it. We got to do something, man, because if we don't, this is just going to keep happening over and over and over. We're going to be right back in the same spot. Let this be a turning point for the future. As Mark Jackson said, I'll repeat him again. Don't talk about it, be about it. I hear about thoughts and prayers. My last thought, and I'll move on to sports. Mark Jackson, I quote him a lot. He says, "Don't talk about it, be about it." I have made no secret about the fact that I'm a Christian, and the Bible says faith without works. Prayer without work is dead. Basically saying if you pray for something, but you're not willing to take the necessary steps to make sure that prayer is answered, it's meaningless. These politicians could pray all they want that this stops, but if they don't actually go in there and do something, it's just going to continue, and we're going to get a lot more thoughts and prayers tweets. So I feel horrible for the families of these kids, the teachers, as well as the families of those lost in Buffalo and in California, Milwaukee, and back the shooting this past year in Michigan. And we got to do something, man. We got to do something. I don't even know I'm supposed to. I didn't know I was supposed to transition to sports. I don't. But I'm going to do my best. Because one of the great things about sports is it does offer an escape from the terrible things going on in this world. So let's talk about sports. As difficult as it may be, let's make it happen. So, the Boston Celtics played the Miami Heat last night in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Series tied 2-2. As many people know the stat, over 80% of teams that have won Game 5 in a 2-2 series have gone on to win the series. Of course, and especially it seems like in recent years, we've seen a lot of exceptions to that rule. And so we'll see if the Celtics will be. But the Celtics won last night by a score of 93-80. It was an ugly basketball game. This has really been kind of an ugly series. We haven't had any entertaining or close games throughout. We've had stars play great and then play like garbage and then play great again. See Jason Tatum in Game 2 to Game 3 to Game 4. Right? We've seen Jaylen Brown have big performances in a loss, play okay in wins. We've seen Jimmy Butler dominate. We've seen Bam Adebayo dominate and then be a no-show. And that has continued up to this point. So I said going into this series, I felt like that the Celtics were going to win this series in 6 games. I felt like that both teams were great defensively. I didn't even make Boston being the number 1 defense in basketball like the biggest reason for me picking them, because Miami's also a great defense. We saw they had 19 steals in Game 3. That's a playoff record. So Miami can lock you up. But I took Boston because at the end of the day, both teams are great defensively, so it's a wash. I feel like home court would be taken early. It was. Boston did that in Game 2. Miami took it right back in Game 3. Boston's taking it right back in Game 5. Home court advantage. I didn't feel like that'd be a massive factor. I felt like both teams were good enough, well coached enough to go on the road and win games, and both teams have done that. But what it came down to, what the playoffs always comes down to, do you have more shot makers than the other team? If you're both on equal footing defensively, even with Boston number 1, Miami is no joke in that department. Do you have more shot makers than the other team? Celtics do. We know about Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, two best players of a team, the two best scorers of a team. Right? Tatum's had one bad game in the series. He scored 10 points in that Game 3 loss. Has bounced back big time ever since. Jaylen Brown last night scored 19 points in the second half. We know he can get buckets, and we know that man can jump out the gym, man. You saw that dunk in the fourth quarter. Dropping down the hammer. Marcus Smart can make threes. My guy Grant Williams can make threes. Peyton Pritchard, even though he mysteriously didn't play last night, I'm not sure what that was about, but he can knock down shots. Robert Williams can score inside and in transition. Al Horford we saw Al Horford put on the floor and make some nice, dare I say, like Allen Iverson looking moves. Maybe that's sacrilegious, but, Al Horford could score. Whereas for Miami, Jimmy Butler's scoring has been up and down. Bam Adebayo's scoring outside of one game, Game 3, has been non-existent. And then you look at guys like Kyle Lowry and Max Strus, the starting backcourt for the Celtics, who have been abysmal. So last night, neither guy made a shot last night. Kyle Lowry, Max Strus. Last two games, combined, Kyle Lowry, Max Strus, these are two guys. Kyle Lowry is not really a score-first guy, but we know he can still give you 15 to 20. Max Strus is a spot-up shooter. These two guys combined in the last two games, this is mind-blowing, have shot 1 for 28 from the field, scored 7 points. That's 3.6%, by the way. So they've done nothing. They're 1 for 19 from 3 at 5%. So these two have shot 3% for the field, basically, and 5% from 3. They've been awful. And so you're not getting the guard play out of Miami. You're looking at the fact that even in these sort of ugly, muck-it-up type games, Boston was only up 2 with 2 minutes left the third quarter, and then they just go on this massive run. I think it was like 24-2 run to open up the game and take a 3-2 lead in the series, holding Miami to only 80 points in the entire basketball game. So that's what it comes down to. And so I think Game 6, do I give Miami a puncher's chance? Sure I do. This has been a resilient basketball team that has won on the road. They've won on the road in Atlanta, in Philly. They've won in Boston in Game 3. Excuse me. Now, Tyler Hero's had a rough series, but I still think them missing him the last couple of games has hurt. Having an extra shot maker off the bench, guy who can put the ball on the floor from time to time, we know can knock down the three, has a nice, stop, pull-up mid-range game. They're going to need Tyler Hero to somehow, some way fight through it and come back in Game 6. But with that said, I'm going with the Boston Celtics to close it out tomorrow night and advance to the NBA Finals. I think when you look at coaching as a wash, and as great as I think Eric Spoelstra's been, I think Ime Udoka is outcoached in this series, because what we've seen is Ime Udoka basically said after that first half, when Jimmy Butler really didn't shoot the basketball, he said, we're not even going to play him as a shooter. We're not going to play Jimmy Butler as a scorer anymore. They backed off Jimmy, locked up on the shooters, Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Oladipo. We're going to say they're not beating us. If Jimmy Butler beats us, then he beats us. But he's not looking to score. Now, I don't know what's going on with Jimmy Butler right now in terms of his aggressiveness, which has gone out the window. I don't know if it's his knee that has been bothering him. Obviously, he left Game 3 with some knee inflammation. I don't know what's going on with Jimmy. I really don't. But Boston just decided, Ime Udoka decided, we're not going to play him as a scorer. So Jimmy Butler, and we know he does this from time to time, he's got to take that personal. He's got to be like Michael Jordan, The Last Dance, man. You got to take that thing personal. He's got to show up in order to keep the Miami Heat season alive. I think Boston closes out tomorrow night. Do we get a close game? I don't know. Look, it's kind of like, it reminds me of the 2016 finals a little bit. It really does. Because now they're obviously, the 2016 finals is a lot better offensive play than there was in this series. But 2016 finals, everybody talks about is this great series. And I'm not saying this just like being like a salty Warriors fan or something. It wasn't a great series. It was a phenomenal Game 7. Game 7 is the best basketball game I've ever watched. And that's coming from a Warriors fan. Okay? Game 7 is the best basketball game I've ever watched. Those first 6 games were terrible. Game 4 was kind of close, but Golden State won in blowouts in games 1 and 2. Cleveland blew them out in Game 3. Golden State won by 15 in Game 4. Cleveland blew them out in games 5 and game 6, and then Cleveland won a phenomenal game 7. That's the kind of this is reminding me of. So do we get a phenomenal game 6? Like, we as NBA fans kind of deserve it. But, we'll see. John's got a trade suggestion. Embiid for Bam, Robinson, and 2 firsts. I'd do it if I'm Miami. Because you've got the shooters already. You got to hope that guys like Strus and Gabe Vincent play a lot better moving forward for you. You look at Bam. Here's the thing about Bam. He's an all-star level player. He's a great defensive player. Like, if I had to sum up Bam Adebayo on the defensive end of the floor, I'd look back to the 2020 Eastern Conference Finals against these same Boston Celtics, the game 1 block on Jason Tatum. Adebayo can lock you up down low. But likewise, Robert Williams is completely shutting Bam Adebayo down. Completely. Now, is it that Bam is not playing his natural position? Bam's really more of a power forward. He's not really a center. First of all, he's only 6'9", and some guys are 6'9" and play 7 feet, and some guys are 6'9" and play like they're 6'7". That feels like Bam. He's got a decent handle, solid mid-range game. Probably could work on it a little bit, but it's solid. He's not really a good back-to-the-basket guy. His only big game in the series was when Robert Williams missed game 3. So you get the dominating presence of Joel Embiid. Now the question for Joel Embiid is availability. Guy gets hurt every year. Every year. Like, that's got to be the sort of concern you could have if you're the Miami Heat. If you're Eric Spoelstra, do you put him on load management? Maybe. Just to keep him fresh. Because you can win games without him. Heck, they won games without Bam. Won games without Jimmy. They talk about Heat culture. It's kind of what they've done this season. It's what helped them get the number 1 seed. And I would say certainly that comment from you, my man, stems from the fact that Joel Embiid last night, what was the tweet? Let me pull it up. It was something about, Jimmy could use another star, because Jimmy Butler did say after Game 6 when he eliminated his old team, the Sixers, that he was, he loved Joel Embiid. The tweet says Miami needs another star. Joel Embiid has tended to be very cryptic on social media, so maybe that's a sign. I don't think he could be wrong. I mean, this is, we could be in for a crazy NBA offseason, but I could be wrong. I don't think he wants out of Philly. Maybe he wants out from James Harden. I don't know if he wants out from Philly, but that'd be an interesting fit. Sounds like a good trade for both sides. Although I think if for Philadelphia, I think the logic would be, does Philadelphia take it? Because do they still view themselves as a championship contender? I think Daryl Morey does. He's got a superstar in Embiid. What the heck do they do with Harden this summer? Philadelphia's kind of in quicksand. Miami's got a lot of options. I'm not sure. I think if Miami were to get Joel Embiid, John, I think it would have to be through a 3-team trade. Just like how Brooklyn got James Harden, and everybody's like, oh, how are they going to get James Harden? Are they going to trade KD? Are they going to trade Kyrie? No, they just did a 3-team trade. So what you'd be giving up if you're Philadelphia is even more depth, because you already gave up Andre Drummond and Seth Curry. Would you have to give up? Of course, Danny Green's got an ACL tear. Prayers up to Danny Green. Hopefully he gets better soon. But you got Danny Green. Do you trade Maxey? Philadelphia's in some quicksand right now. There's no question about it. I'm not real sure what they do. But let's move on to the Western Conference Finals. Game 5 tips off tonight at the Chase Center in the Bay Area. Folks, my Golden State Warriors are a win away from the NBA Finals. I don't know if you heard. I tried to tell y'all before the season it was happening. I tried to tell y'all. And I tried to tell you about this series too. Everybody jumped on the Dallas bandwagon. And Luka's a phenomenal basketball player. He's one of the 5-6 best players on earth. No question about it. And he's had a pretty good series. Didn't play horribly well in Game 1. Felt like he didn't step up enough in Game 3. But all in all, he's had a good series. But man, I tried to tell Luka, the Mavericks, and those picking the Mavericks, Phoenix is a great basketball team, and they ain't Golden State. Because what Golden State has that Phoenix doesn't have is a championship pedigree, is a great defense, is depth. So that's what I tried to say. I said Dubs in 6. I wanted really bad to go Dubs in 5. I said it at the time. I was I was like, I feel like I should go Dubs in 5, but out of respect for Luka, I'll go Dubs in 6. But it looks like it's going to be Dubs in 5 tonight. Vegas has my guys as 6.5-point favorites at home. And yeah, I'm taking that any day of the week because Steph Curry has been simply phenomenal in the Western Conference Finals in the fourth quarter of the playoffs, by the way. For those of you that say Steph Curry isn't clutch in the playoffs, he's shooting almost 50, 40, 90 in the playoffs. Yeah, I'm sorry, in the fourth quarter. In the Western Conference Finals, he's averaged 28 a game. So I'm just throwing that out there. John was on that. He said, not me. I said Golden State in 5. And you did. I remember you commented that at the time when I was making my conference finals predictions. Yeah, I mean, I feel like just out of respect for Luka, I should go 6. But hey, listen, we can close out in 5, do it at home, get a week off. But what I've seen through this series, let's start with the Warriors since they're up 3-1. And by the way, before I even get into that, can we stop? Can the media please stop with this narrative? Oh, are the Golden State Warriors in trouble of becoming the first team in history to blow a 3-0 lead? I don't want that question to come up unless they lose like game 6 or something. It goes to game 7. Then that's a good question to ask. But what is it? 145, 46 teams have been down 3-1. Or I'm sorry, 3-0. 145 teams have never come back. It's never been done before. And so it's not going to be done against this Warriors team. Because even if they lose tonight, they got game 6. Even if they lose game 6, they got game 7 on their home floor. And plus, Golden State's the only team in the playoffs that's undefeated at home. Have not lost. 8-0 at the Chase Center in front of the best fans, the best home court in the basketball, in the National Basketball Association. Barry's in the comments. Oh, boy. Barry says, I sense another 3-1 collapse. No. It took to get that 3-1 collapse, Barry Grant Jr., first of all, it took one of the 2 greatest basketball players ever in LeBron James to play probably the greatest basketball he's ever played. Dropping 41 in both games 5 and 6 and a triple-double in game 7, which culminated in the greatest block in NBA history. Took Kyrie Irving doing what he did. Kevin Love on the defensive end of the floor. Tristan Thompson as well. It also took Steph Curry having the worst playoff series of his career. Draymond Green getting suspended for game 5. The Warriors' best rim protector, Andrew Bogut, getting hurt in game 5 and missing the rest of the series. Andre Iguodala getting hurt in game 6, and he was never 100% from there. No asterisks. I always say there's no asterisks next to titles. Never. So, I'm just saying. And Barry says, I can dream. I don't want this NBA Finals. I will not watch, LOL. You don't have to watch. You don't have to watch them, but, it's all right. You know what? And I told Barry was on the show that this, not this past Monday, but a week and a half ago, that Monday's show before I left for vacation. And Barry said, I can't, I don't know who to root for. Like, I can't root for anybody. He compared it on his own show. By the way, go check out the All Even podcast, folks. It's amazing. But he said it's like for him, because he's a Mets fan, it's like the 2009 World Series, because you got the Phillies, who are a division rival, and you got the Yankees, who obviously the Mets hate. I hate as a Red Sox fan. I think the whole sports world outside the Bronx hates the Yankees. But he said it's like that. I wouldn't even go there, because he doesn't have to necessarily root for the Warriors, but he should root against the Celtics, folks. Because if Boston wins the finals, they jump the Lakers. Barry's a Lakers fan. They jump the Lakers in championships. You don't want that, do you? And I said on this show, and I'm holding tight to it. I said, unless there's any major developments out of the Lakers, I will not talk about them these playoffs. I will not. The only thing only time I've talked about them this postseason is when Frank Vogel got fired. That's it. If they hire a coach like during the finals or something, I'll talk about it. Outside of that, I'm not talking about that bum team in Los Angeles. Heck no. We don't talk about 33-win teams on Carving It Up. I hate to tell you. But yes, with Golden State, what you're seeing is obviously experience, depth, and what I said going into the series, everybody's like, oh, how are they going to defend Luka? How are they going to defend Luka? Draymond's the only guy they got. I'm like, what are you talking about? This Andrew Wiggins? Andrew Wiggins has got length. He's quick, good anticipation. He's done a really good job on Luka. Luka struggled at times against Andrew Wiggins. Even Klay Thompson. Is Klay Thompson the defensive player he was before the injury? No. But he's still better than 80% of perimeter defenders in this league. In game 3, I thought Klay did a phenomenal job on Luka, and especially in the fourth quarter. Dallas ran a lot of pick and rolls, got switches. Yeah, I don't know why they went at Klay. If you're going to go at somebody, I guess go at Steph. Don't go at Klay. And Klay did a great job on Luka. Draymond has defended Luka in spurts. Kevon Looney, who for his size is a decent perimeter defender, he's done a solid job. Guys off the bench, Otto Porter Jr., who unfortunately is once again out. Reportedly, he's going to be out for tonight's Game 5. I think he re-aggravated that foot injury. And we're going to need Otto Porter Jr. to heal up for before the finals, because his shot making, his defense are huge. So hopefully he gets better soon. But Otto Porter's done a decent job, and also what you're seeing for the Warriors is patience. Because when Dallas is trailing big in the series, they start jacking threes. Not really running anything offensively. Luka's trying to make it happen all by himself. He's not trusting his teammates. When Golden State's down, see Game 2, by 19 points, it was crazy. Watching that game as a Warriors fan, this is the God's truth. I never felt like we were out of that basketball game. Never. There was never a time in that game where I was like, tonight's our night. Game 4, I felt that way. Now, when the backups came in, Moody and Kuminga and Poole made that big comeback, I'm like, Bielitsa as well played well. I'm like, oh, crap, we may actually win this game. But what you're seeing for the Warriors, and again, it goes back to that championship DNA, is not panicking in big situations. Moving the basketball, getting good shots. Kevon Looney you can't say enough about what he did in Game 2, scoring 21 points. First time he's ever done that in his career, postseason or regular season. He's never done that in his NBA career. He did it in Game 2. And so I think it's all said and done. The Warriors come out and get this win tonight and advance the NBA Finals. And I will be a very happy man on tomorrow's show. You guys will not want to miss that. As for Dallas, I think what I'm hearing this notion like, oh, Luka needs more help. And could they do a better job of putting quote-unquote help around Luka? Sure. But what I'm seeing from Luka Doncic, and it goes back to kind of what I was talking about with the Mavericks, is when he has a cushion in games, I'm not calling Luka a front runner, but when he has a cushion in games, he's got a 6-7 point lead, 2 minutes left, he's totally willing to trust his teammates. Guys like Kleber, Reggie Bullock, Jalen Brunson, even Frank Ntilikina, who had a good Game 4, Dwight Powell down low. He trusts his teammates. But when they're down, it's a little Westbrookian. He doesn't play as out of control as Russ, but when they're down, he feels like he's got to do it all by himself, and it looks a little bit discombobulated. He'll score. He may hit the occasional step-back 3, but the other 4 Mavericks on the floor are watching the game like the rest of us. So you have that aspect to it. So I think he's got to do a better job. And Kobe had to do this later in his career. Remember, Kobe and Shaq split up, and Kobe was scoring. Obviously, he had the 81-point game. He had the 65-point game in 3 quarters and 50-point games. But the Lakers really never did anything in the playoffs. Like, they get bounced the first round. They blew the 3-1 lead to Phoenix, right? They never did anything in the playoffs. And everybody talks about the turning point was when they got Powell. That was huge. But to me, the turning point was when they brought Phil Jackson back in the building. Now, Phil Jackson's gone off the rails. I don't know what he's talking about these days. But Phil Jackson, when he was sane, I guess, when they brought him back to be the head coach, got Kobe through the triangle offense, very similar to how he got Michael Jordan to buy into it. Talked about, hey, you got to trust your teammates. And lo and behold, the 2010 finals, Game 7 against Boston, 1 minute left. Lakers are up by 3. Kobe was awful in that Game 7. Awful. He was good in the defensive end. Could not buy a shot. I think he might have went for like 5 for 23. Terrible offensively. And Kobe took a dribble, drew the double team, kicked it out to Ron Artest. He hit the dagger 3. 4 years ago, Kobe does not make that pass. He shoots over 2-3 guys. And who knows what happens? Maybe Boston wins that game, because I believe on the next end down the floor, I think Ray Allen hit a 3-point shot that cut it back to 3. So, that could have tied the game. So it's about Luka being able to buy into, his teammates. Let's see. John says, is Clay the third or fourth option? In this series, I think he's been the third option. Steph, Wiggins, Clay. Poole's been a little shaky. He had a great game 1, great game 2, was a little off in game 3, and didn't really play that well in game 4. Had a few turnovers. So I think Klay Thompson is still the number 3. I think when teams still have to account for him. He didn't forget how to shoot. He played well in that game 2 comeback, moving without the basketball, cutting. Had a couple of dunks. So you have that aspect to it. So I think with Clay, I still think he's the third option. And I think if Dallas treats him like a fourth option, maybe we could see a game 6 Clay in game 5. Probably not. I'm not gonna predict that, but maybe we get a Klay Thompson game 6 memorial, something along those lines. My man Grady Edwards, he's in the comments. He says probably a little late in this topic, but the fact that a lot of these school shootings in America happen with people under the age of 21 should tell us about something about our culture. I can't barely listen to the news in regards to this. They're just very out of touch with the public. Unfortunately, this is just another spectacle for people to talk about gun control. A lot of people lost their lives, and it's just unfortunate we got a bunch of crooked politicians pretending they care and using this for poll numbers. Sad. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's sort of what comes down to, Grady. And again, I've said my piece on this show. I'll clip it, put it on YouTube. But yeah, they don't care. They don't. When it's all said and done, man, they don't care. And so, like I detailed it. There's ways, we as U.S. citizens can make our voices heard. Protests, peaceful, of course, and voting. So I'll leave it there without a question. So again, conference finals are going on. I think my Golden State Warriors clinch tonight, advance to the finals. I think Boston does the same tomorrow night at home. And if we get a Warriors-Celtics finals, man, that sounds like a 7-gamer to me, because both teams match up really well with both. Golden State has really good perimeter defenders. I already mentioned Wiggins, Clay, Draymond, Kuminga. Looney's a decent perimeter defender. Boston, obviously, Tatum has improved drastically of the defensive end of the floor. Derek White, Marcus Smart, all he did was win Defensive Player of the Year. And so I think you look at this matchup, both teams match up really well with one another. So, we'll see what happens from there. But my prediction, my gut feeling, Dubs clinch tonight, C's clinch tomorrow, and NBA Finals tip off a week from today. It's going to be fun. There's no question. But I think that's who we're going to get. Okay. So moving on, is this our only NFL topic? I think it is. Yeah, it's our only NFL topic of the day. So let's dive into the controversial topic. That is Colin Kaepernick. Of course, we're gonna leave. If those in the comments, the guy you see speaking behind this mic, regardless what your opinions are on the kneeling and this and that and stuff he's done, we're just gonna leave that at the door. We're gonna talk about Colin Kaepernick, the football player, and we're gonna talk about Colin Kaepernick getting a tryout with the Raiders. And some of you might be saying, why the heck you talk about a tryout for a guy who's a backup quarterback? Well, same reason I talked about Tim Tebow getting signed last year as a tight end. It's interesting. If Johnny Manziel got signed tomorrow, I'd talk about him. So that's what it ultimately comes down to. I'm not going to talk about Blaine Gabbert getting signed by whoever, or Blake Bortles getting signed by whoever. Colin Kaepernick's interesting. Tim Tebow's interesting. So I'm going to talk about them. And so in this case, Colin Kaepernick. So reportedly, he got a tryout with the Las Vegas Raiders yesterday. According to Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, that the Raiders were impressed. Although Josh McDaniels made some comments today that made it sound like maybe they're not horribly interested in signing him. I said on the show when Kaepernick did that, I wouldn't even call it a tryout. It was more like a workout at the Michigan Wolverine spring game in Ann Arbor when he was throwing at halftime. And everybody's talking about, is Colin going to get a tryout? And I said, I thought the best fit for Colin and the team you go to is the Buffalo Bills, because what you want in your quarterback is for them to be a carbon copy, or I should say, the better way to put it is the poor man's version of. You look at the Ravens. Lamar Jackson's their starter. He's the franchise guy. RG3 was the perfect backup. right? Not as mobile as Lamar, certainly not as accurate as Lamar. Has had his share of injuries. You have that. Forgot the backup quarterback's name. He's not coming to my mind that came in for Lamar Jackson when he went down. But he's a perfect Tyler Huntley. Tyler Huntley, that's who it was. Tyler Huntley came in. Played pretty well. His playing style was similar to that of Lamar Jackson's. Brian Hoyer for years was Tom Brady's backup. He's, you don't have to, because at the end of the day, if you're the offensive coordinator, you don't want to have to change the offense for your new guy coming in. Yeah, that's what made it so tough for the Broncos back in 2011 when they benched Kyle Orton for Tim Tebow. Could not be more different. Kyle Orton was your typical, pocket passer, and Tim Tebow could not hit a barn if it was 5 feet in front of him, but could run much better than Kyle Orton, was far more mobile. And so it put a lot of a strain on John Fox to say, man, I'm going to have to completely change the offense here. Look at the Ravens in 2018. Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson. Completely different quarterbacks. So that's when I heard, could Colin go to, I forgot the team name listed, the Texans? I was like, no, that's not going to work because Davis Mills is their guy. If he goes down, Colin's a different type quarterback than Davis Mills. That's why I said Buffalo was a perfect fit. He's a poor man's Josh Allen. Big, strong, big arm. Now Josh has improved his accuracy. Colin, that was sort of an issue of his, he's sort of like in the 50s in terms of his completion percentage. And both guys are mobile. Big, strong athletes, mobile, big arm. Obviously, Josh Allen is a generational talent at the quarterback position, and Colin Kaepernick's a backup. That's why I thought it'd be a good fit. The Raiders is an interesting one because Derek Carr certainly he's not as big in frame as Josh Allen is. I think Derek Carr's got an underrated arm. It's not Josh Allen's got the best arm in football. Derek Carr doesn't. But Derek Carr is a good arm. He's got some zip on the ball, if you will. And so I think the fit is not as ideal as, say, a Buffalo. Heck, not Denver, that wouldn't work because even Russ and Kaepernick are very different quarterbacks. But I think for the Raiders, what it comes down to is Colin Kaepernick the better option than whoever your backup quarterback is? Number two, because this can't be avoided, are you willing to deal with the media attention that this is going to bring? It's as simple as that. That's going to be a little tough. Now, for Derek Carr, there's nothing, you would think, that could be worse for Derek Carr to have to deal with as a franchise quarterback than what happened with the Raiders last year. John Gruden, Henry Ruggs, Damon Arnett, Josh Jacobs had some off the field issues. It's like, man, this guy can't catch a break. And he still got them to playoffs. So media attention for the backup, I don't think is going to affect Derek Carr. I really genuinely don't. So I think some quarterbacks it would affect. It would absolutely affect certain guys. I don't think it's going to affect Derek Carr. So you have that aspect to it. And so my takeaway from the tryout is it's just a tryout. Does he get signed? We'll see. But this is certainly, without a question, nobody could argue this. This is as close as Colin Kaepernick has ever come to coming back in the NFL since he knelt during the national anthem in 2016 and was cut by the 49ers the following year. My opinion is Colin Kaepernick is one of the 96 best quarterbacks in the league. I would still argue he's one of the 64 best quarterbacks in the league. Why do I give 96-64? Well, simple math. There's 32 teams in the league. Every team's got a starter and a backup. 2 times 32, 64. So is Colin Kaepernick as good as, are there 64 quarterbacks that we can definitively say are better than Colin Kaepernick? I have a hard time believing that. Is he what he was in 2012 and 2013 in Jim Harbaugh's system when he got to a Super Bowl and then got to the NFC Championship game? Definitely not. Definitely not. But I think, and that's the thing for Colin Kaepernick is he's not talented enough for you to build your franchise around him. But if you put him in the right system, he works. There are certain quarterbacks like that. And so I think that's what Jalen Hurts is. I think is a good example of this. I'm not big on Jalen Hurts as a franchise quarterback. I seriously question his arm talent. His mobility is out of this world. I got no qualms about that. His accuracy's been up and down, but in the current Philadelphia Eagles system, he works. You can get to the playoffs with him. We saw that last year. You can win 9 games. I think Colin Kaepernick is a similar type of guy. So if Derek Carr, God forbid, goes down, it's a formidable backup. So it comes down to, for the Raiders, you got to answer 2 questions. Is he better than anybody else you could possibly bring in the building? The answer is yes. Okay, we're going to put a check in that box. Secondly, are you willing to deal with the media attention? There's going to be negative feedback. There's going to be positive feedback. Are you willing to deal with both? I think Derek Carr is. Are the Raiders? That's the question. Is Josh McDaniels? Is Mark Davis? I guess Mark Davis is, or he wouldn't have brought him in for a tryout. But are the higher ups, heck, is the locker room willing to deal with this? If the answer to that's yes, the answer to the first question I asked is yes, sign him. See what he's got in training camp. Because that's what it comes down to the end of the day. If Colin Kaepernick gets signed, that is not guaranteed he's going to be on the 53-man roster this upcoming season. He's got to perform well in training camp, perform well in the preseason. If he does, he should make the roster. So that's sort of my take on it. Let's see. A couple of comments here. Grady, he says, I kind of think the Raiders will sign Cap if any team does this offseason. That franchise tends to go against the grain and might want to one-up the NFL after the whole Washington football team scandal. I'd like to see him get a preseason shot at least. Yeah, at the end of the day, and that's the thing. He has, if Colin had not shown the commitment since he left or I would say he left the game, it was not his choice. Since he's been out of the game, if he didn't show that commitment, then it'd be like, okay. But we've seen the workout videos. Got some zip on the ball. Now I'm not going to take the deep balls down the field to guys like Tyler Lockett, or I think he threw with Bryce Butler a little bit. Like, he's throwing against air. Like, he's not throwing against coverages. So there's only so much you can take from that. But arm strength still looks good. Still looks like he's in good physical shape. According to him, he's trained for the last 5-6 years. So if he's got the commitment, he's still got the talent, he should be in the National Football League. That's what it comes down to. Moving to even more drama, back to the NBA. The Brooklyn Nets, man. I'll tell you what. They're in a shape right now. It's crazy. This is the team that Vegas favored to not just get to the finals, but win the whole darn thing. And I warned people about the Brooklyn Nets, not as much as I warned people about that team in Los Angeles, but I warned people about the Nets. Awful defensively. I saw a stat today, by the way, about the Nets, before I get into the main topic. I saw a stat today. They had the best field goal percentage of any team in the entire playoffs. Now, they only played 4 games, so they didn't have a chance to advance and have some bad games, obviously. But they're the only team in the NBA playoffs who shot 50, the entire playoffs, all 16 teams, who shot 50% in all of their games combined. And they got swept. Why? Abysmal defensively. And way too many turnovers. And they frankly don't run offensive sets. But I guess that's what Kyrie Irving wanted, right? We don't need a coach. No sirree. Kevin and I, man, we got this. Okay. By the way, I gotta call it somebody. I gotta call it Jalen Rose. I love Jalen Rose. Love that guy. He's one of my favorite analysts in the game. And he's got the best barber in the game, too. But Jalen Rose. That guy, Jalen Rose, should be stripped of his votes for the All-NBA teams because he voted for Kyrie Irving to be on the, I think, 3rd-team All-NBA. Kyrie Irving played 29 games. Let's do that quick math real quick. 29 out of 82 games. That's 35%. Yeah, that's not an All-NBA player if you only play 29 games. Like, come on. Dude. And Grady says, should have kept D'Angelo Russell, Allen, Dinwiddie, LeVert, and all those other dudes. Sheesh, LOL. Never thought I'd be saying that. And what the thing with that was, what made that Brooklyn Nets team so interesting is you had a developmental coach in Kenny Atkinson, who is a finalist for the Laker job. I don't think would be a good fit with it. I love Kenny Atkinson. I did not understand why they fired him a couple of years ago. I think Kevin and Kyrie had something to do with that. But Kenny Atkinson is more of a developmental type guy, which is why he was a perfect fit for those Brooklyn Nets with those young players that you mentioned. Jared Allen, Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, D'Angelo Russell. So I think that has something to do with it as well. But what they sacrificed, and people roll their eyes at this, but it matters, is sacrifice truly building a culture. Golden State is a culture. So does Boston. So is Miami. Dallas, kind of. But even other teams in the playoffs Philadelphia doesn't have a culture. Brooklyn doesn't have a culture. New Orleans should not have been in the playoffs. But they were. Why? They built a good culture this season. Right? Willie Green I thought did a great job this season coaching that young group. Guys like, Herb Jones, and obviously we know about Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum, the veteran in the room. But young team, Alvarado. So they should have been in the playoffs, but they built a culture, and they're building a culture. The Nets were really a lot like the like these Pelicans this year. But they kind of sacrificed that. Obviously, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving is 10 times better than whoever. If you think D'Angelo Russell is the best player on that Nets team, I agree with you. D'Angelo Russell's not in the same league as Kevin and Kyrie. Not even close. So I get going after those guys and signing them. But the fact, again, not getting them to buy into not necessarily a system, but a culture. That stuff matters. But anyways, what's going on is, according to reports, Kyrie Irving is reportedly not going to be offered a long-term deal by the Brooklyn Nets. He's going to be a free agent. So Kyrie's probably gone. You heard Sean Marks, the general manager of the team, saying, we'd like to bring guys in the building that are more committed, which he was talking to one guy and one guy only, and that was one Kyrie Irving. So you have a guy who's, wants to be the GM, and again, before the season, refused to get vaxxed, which, given the New York City mandate, he couldn't play home games, and so the Nets said he can't play road games either. Then they let him play road games. Then New York City let him play home games, and then they fell apart in the playoffs. And so you have the constant drama that is Kyrie Irving. It's vax stuff. It's missing games randomly. It's the fact that he's had trouble staying healthy throughout his entire career. Burning sage in the locker room. It's like, man, dude, that's why James Harden left. And I'm not a Harden fan. I have ripped James Harden in this show for not getting along with other star teammates. Not criticizing him for this one, because nobody gets along with Kyrie. Wonder why. Even Kevin's gotten tired of him. And reportedly, it's part of the reason Kevin Durant has not talked to the Nets since their season came to an abrupt end in the first round. And so what you have to do is this. First of all, you got to move on from Kyrie Irving. Because if you keep Kyrie, I think Kevin's gone. I think Kevin Durant, just like he did with Russell Westbrook, has gotten tired of him. But there does have to be some accountability on the part of KD. He's got to say, look, I'm still one of the 5 best players on the planet. I'm sure KD thinks he's the best player on the planet. That's great. I want him to think that. But I just got swept in the first round, right? I need to step back a little bit and let the front office put together the team, similar to LeBron with the Lakers. Should your superstar players have say? Absolutely. Yeah, keep them in the loop. Keep them, let them know what's going on. Be transparent with them, but don't let them make every single decision. They were not hired to be general managers. Rob Pelinka was hired to be the GM of the Lakers. Sean Marks was hired to be the GM of the Nets. Now, I think the Nets are not in quicksand like the Lakers are, because the Lakers have, no cap space. Most of their guys in this team are going to be free agents. No assets. They're stuck. The Nets, I don't think, are as stuck. Move Kyrie. Maybe a sign and trade could work. Maybe to Washington for Bradley Beal. Bring Bradley Beal in the building. Got him and Kevin Durant. Bring some better defensive players in the building. And you got a championship contender. Does anybody want to play Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal in the playoffs? I don't. Now, Bradley Beal, like Kyrie, has had some injury struggles. So that's a factor. But when it's all said and done, you got to move on from Kyrie, and you got to go Kevin and say, look, we want you to stay. We need you to stay in order to be a title contender. But we are putting together this team. We're going to keep you in the loop. But we're putting together this basketball team. How Kevin Durant responds to that, we'll see. But that's what they got to do. Grady asks, is that far-fetched to think there's a possibility the Nets just blow it all up? Trade KD, Simmons, and Kyrie? Not sounding too good. I think there's a 0% chance this year that they blow it up. Because I think what the Nets looking at is, I mean, how many times, there's not that many Kevin Durant's out there. We can have our criticism of KD and how he played and this and that, but Kevin Durant's one of the 20 greatest basketball players who ever lived. Those guys don't just walk in the building. So what you got to do is say, okay, KD's still in his prime. We are building our franchise around him. We tried to build our franchise behind KD and Kyrie. It didn't work because of the latter. Move on from him, possibly a sign and trade. Build the team around Kevin. The Ben Simmons component is a whole nother mystery. I said it was a massive mistake for the Nets to trade for Ben Simmons, but we'll see how that works. I would trade Ben Simmons, although one could argue his stock will never be lower than now. So we'll see what the Nets do. Build the team around KD, but you got to move on from Kyrie Irving. There's no way, Stephen A. Smith's caught a lot of flack for his criticism of Kyrie. I think all of it's been fair and justified because he doesn't show up and play. But Stephen A. Smith said, I would play Kyrie $50 million a year to play basketball on 1-year contracts. 1 year, $50 million. 1 year, $50 million. You can't trust him long term. You can't. You don't know what it's going to be. Is it going to be vac stuff? Is it going to be taking random time off for no reason in particular? We just got to sit back and see. It's always something with this guy. One thing I'll say about Dennis Rodman, the guy, we know about his off-court life, but aside from a couple of instances, Dennis Rodman showed up and played basketball and played his role better than anybody's probably ever played their role in NBA history. Kyrie didn't do that. So, we'll see. Let's see. Josh McDaniels, according to Adam Schefter, just tweeted this. Josh McDaniels on Colin Kaepernick workout. Derek Carr knows the Las Vegas Raiders are his team. I don't think Derek Carr should feel, Derek Carr doesn't strike me as an insecure guy in the slightest, but I don't think Derek Carr should feel any sense of like, oh boy, like this guy may take my job. I don't think he should feel that. I don't. We'll see what happens with Colin. It's going to be interesting. But that was all the time we have for today's show. I appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. Got a chance I might have a little celebration plan tomorrow if my Warriors get it done, which I believe they will. Got a great basketball game slated for tonight. Boston, Miami tomorrow. We're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about Warriors, Mavs game 5. Going to talk some Dallas Cowboys tomorrow. Can't avoid these guys, man. Can't avoid them. But hope everybody's a great evening. Continue to stay safe out there. Please stay safe out there, folks. God bless you all. Peace out. Let's go Dubs. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.